Welcome to the FanDuel Punch-Out. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Spencer Limbach at Spencer_JL on Twitter. And we're talking about FanDuel tonight, of course. And it's another one of those nights where there's really no great pitcher. I mean, last night it was easy. You click Chris Sale into your cash games, and then you just move on. And tonight, not one of those nights. But there's a couple options you feel okay about. You got Carlos Carrasco at Tampa Bay, $9,100. As far as strikeout potential goes, he's among the best on the slate, of course. 26.6% strikeout rate, actually pretty far above everyone else on the season. 2.85 xFIP, 5% walk rate. I mean, he's a guy that he's been very good this season. And Tampa Bay, while they don't strike out a ton, they're not a great offense against right-handed pitching. So, I mean, I think he's just got to be your cash game option tonight.
Yeah, and he's my number one cash game option, too. I don't think that comes as much of a surprise. A lot of people will be on him tonight for good reason. But if you look a couple starts ago, he faced Tampa Bay at home, gave up 10 hits in 6 innings. Not that great of a performance, but I was actually watching that game, and there were a lot of bloops here and there. And then, I mean, then it started to rain, and they pulled him. So it was just a bad situation for him. I wouldn't expect a repeat performance there against the Rays. And he's in the Trop tonight, so that's considered more of a pitcher-friendly park. So I think he's the number one option. I think you can safely put him in for cash games.
Yeah, and like you mentioned with those bloops, I mean, his BABIP in that game was 400 allowed. So, I mean, obviously, every ball that was getting hit in play was going into a gap. So, I'm with you there. Seems more of a fluke than anything. So, your other options, John Lackey gets a terrible option. Well, I guess the White Sox are a terrible option. A terrible offense in the White Sox. And, I mean, outside of a start in Colorado and one at Kansas City, he's been really consistent recently. Had a really good start against the Dodgers. I had a couple pretty good starts against some other teams. So, I mean, I don't like his price. I know you don't either. It's kind of up there. But I think he's an okay option because the White Sox have just been so bad. And you're worried about Jose Abreu and nobody else. So I think you can consider him. And then one more guy I would consider for cash games is Chris Heston, $7,600, gets Miami. I know Vogelsong struggled last night, but Vogelsong also has some pretty severe splits from home to road, and Chris Heston doesn't. He has a worse road ERA, which makes sense, though, because obviously anyone likes to pitch in AT&T Park, but it's not a significant difference, so I think he's an okay option as well.
Yeah, I'm going to throw out a few more. Like you said, John Lackey, I'm not enthused with the price, but I think he's overall a solid pick. And if you have him in, and heaven forbid something happens to Carrasco, you might be in a good position to win all the money, at least cash game money in your double ups. Looking down there, I like Wei-Yin Chen for Baltimore. Texas has a very lefty-heavy lineup. And Chen's great against left-handers. So I think he can neutralize those bats like Fielder, Mitch Moreland, Chu, guys like that. And the only right-handed bat you have to worry about is Adrian Beltre, and he really hasn't been himself this year. So I like Wei-Yin Chen. I think he's in a nice spot, 7.8K. Not afraid to go his way for some tournament upside.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that, like you said, a lot of people will be off him because it's Texas, but he's a pretty solid lefty.
And Texas has been mashing lately, so but this is just a different scenario going against the lefty today. So
yeah, and as we saw last night, St. Louis Cardinals really bad against left-handed pitching. Jose Quintana struggled against Detroit, but that's a much better offense against lefties. Actually, one of the best in the league. So $7,700, you're looking for a tournament option. You assume at least Matt Carpenter will be in the lineup again today. We don't know about Colton Wong. Doesn't hit lefties particularly well, but I think that he's a really nice high upside guy as well. And then a guy that some people will probably be looking at, but I'm really not, Brett Anderson. Had that great game at Miami, but that's a Miami team that's just awful, especially without Giancarlo Stanton now. And now he's going to Arizona, one of the highest totals on the day. I'm not chasing that big game last time.
Yeah, me neither. Chase Field's one of the top 5 hitter-friendly parks. And I think, you have Goldschmidt, Pollock, all those guys with the platoon advantage. I think that's an unnecessary risk.
Yeah, and Goldschmidt's something like 7 for 11 off him in his career. So, I'm definitely a fan of the Diamondbacks more than I am of Brett Anderson tonight. So, If we're looking at catcher, and we are, of course, looking for some options here. A couple interesting ones. Matt Shoemaker's had big time issues with fly balls, so I like Brian McCann for tournaments at $3,800. You're of course looking at Buster Posey and Dan Herron. I mean, Buster Posey's now starting to hit like the MVP he once was, really getting it going. And then really hard to look past Jonathan Lucroy as well at $3,000. He's been hitting the ball really well. I think he's in a good spot against Dan Herron. And then if you're chasing the hot streak right now, he has Monty Grandal at $2,900. Gets a tougher pitcher, and it's a lefty this time, but he is a switch hitter, so I don't mind him tonight either.
Yeah, he hits righties a little bit better, but I mean, it's not much of a increase that you're steering away if you otherwise like the matchup against a lefty. So I don't mind him for 2.9K. I think Lucroy is a tad bit safer at 3K. He's probably my preferred cash game option. Otherwise, I also have my eye on Matt Waiters against Nick Martinez, who finally is imploding like the Nick Martinez we have all grown to love over the years. So I like Baltimore. I like Matt Waiters tonight. Otherwise, Victor Martinez, 3.4K. Also like him against AJ Burnett. One tournament cheap pick you can look at. We said we like Wei and Chen, but Robinson Chirinos has some home run upside. Oftentimes gets overlooked because he's hits down in the lineup and he's just one of those names that doesn't really pop at you. So I don't mind him 2.5K if you want to kind of steer away from the herd.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, I love him playing him against lefties in tournaments, and like you said, his ownership will be really low, especially if he's down low in the order. So, big fan there. That's really the only guys I'm looking at. Maybe one of these Arizona bats if they're in the lineup. You get one of them in some tournaments, but that's about it. Hard to say who's going to be in the lineup.
Castillo's a lot more expensive than I thought. He's 3.1K. I think I'd rather go Lucroy, Waiters, Martinez.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Looking at the first base position, of course, Paul Goldschmidt. There's your obligatory reference every day. He's obviously one of your top options, but he's also very expensive, $5,400. I really like Albert Pujols, despite being in the pitcher's park in LA. Nathan Eovaldi, just not a good pitcher. He's a guy that I love to pick on. I mean, hasn't been terrible this year. Actually been decent against righties, 289 wOBA allowed, but Pujols, really great tournament option because, I mean, you look at his numbers, they're already impressive. Then you look, his BABIP is right around 240. I mean, he's still getting unlucky and still putting up the numbers he is. So he's having a better season than even what it seems like. And then, of course, you got to mention Chris Davis. Nick Martinez has actually been pretty good against lefties, but like you said, I'm not buying it. You're not buying it. He had 2 hits last night. Of course, they're both home runs. That's pretty much what he does. But $3,300, I think he's going to be probably more popular in cash games than he should be. But for that reason, he's the guy that I'm definitely considering because got a ton of power, especially in that park. And if he has a big game and he's heavily owned in cash games like it was last night, if you didn't have him, you're behind pretty quickly.
Yeah, he has that upside, and he's also one of the better priced options at first base because you talk about Goldschmidt, Pujols, maybe Anthony Rizzo. They're all pretty expensive, so Chris Davis fits a lot better into your lineup at 3.3K, and he does have that upside. And I don't really see many other guys from that range that I'm looking at because you have like Duda and a lefty-lefty, Gonzalez and a lefty-lefty. So, I mean, I don't really know. I think he kind of just lands there by default, not chasing points or anything from last night.
Yep.
One other guy you probably should keep your eye on is Adam Lind against Harang. Harang is another one of those guys who's finally coming back down to earth. He has a 352 wOBA split against lefties. And Lind, I mean, he's been on a hot streak lately, so you have to like that. A few more cheapies. Pedro Alvarez against Alfredo Simon. I like that. He's finally heating up a little bit. If you look at the game log, he's producing RBIs, extra base hits, whatnot. It's good to see him doing something other than home runs because it takes a little bit of risk out of the equation. Otherwise, Ryan Howard against Kyle Loesch, who loves giving up lefty power. And they're a hitter-friendly ballpark in Philadelphia, so I think it's a calculated risk to look towards Ryan Howard in tournaments, even though he's been less than impressive as of late.
Yeah, and I'll throw out one more cheap guy as well, Justin Bour. Been hitting righties really well this season, and if Chris Heston has any weakness, I mean, obviously he has more than one, but 353 WOBA allowed to lefties so far this season. So he's been very, very good against righties, not so good against lefties. 2.3K Justin Bour is pretty interesting tonight as well. Second base options, you got Jason Kipnis at the top. He's 4,500. He's been expensive, but he's been worth it more often than not. Alex Colome on the other side. He's a contact pitcher who has been below average against lefties, 331 WOBA allowed. So if you have the money to pay, obviously you're not shying away from Kipnis. Jimmy Paredes was a disappointment last night, but 3,300. Once again, picking on Nick Martinez. I think the Nick Martinez we're going to get tonight, I would anticipate is not the Nick Martinez that we saw early in the season once again. So still picking on Mr. Nick Martinez. And if I go down swinging with these Baltimore bats, I don't mind that because I'm just still not a believer.
Yeah, I have Paredes on my list as well, obviously. Big fan of all the Orioles tonight, pretty much. And another guy, 3K, D. Gordon. I'm not chasing that home run from last night. Actually kind of bitter about it because I switched off of him at the last minute, not anticipating a 3 RBI home run out of him. So, yeah, D. Gordon again. We said Chris Heston, a lot more generous to lefties, so I like that price point there. Otherwise, a little bit cheaper, Neil Walker against Alfredo Simon, who we said is kind to left-handed batters. I think he's kind of a decent cash game filler there, 2.6K. Got to like the price point.
Yeah, I love Neil Walker. I think if I'm paid down at second base, I think he's the guy I'm going to. I went with him last night. He was one of the few guys that actually showed up. But yeah, he's definitely the best guy around that price range.
And one more, Danny Espinosa, 2.3K. If you need someone towards bare minimum, he's been hitting second in front of Bryce Harper, a guy who can get multiple hits, maybe an RBI, a couple runs.
Yeah, good call there. Third base, Manny Machado. Not going to give you the reasoning for the 18th time. You get it here. 4,300. Of course, he's in play. Homered last night. A guy who's a really interesting option who's been really good recently. Matt Duffy's had some big-time games. Didn't have a good game last night, but he gets Dan Herron tonight, who, like I said, throughout his career, worse against righties than lefties, but this year, pretty bad against lefties as well. 331 WOBA allowed, 9 homers. Matt Duffy's been batting right up ahead of Buster Posey. Got to like the spot for him there. And then a couple more interesting tournament options. I love Luis Valbuena against Edison Volquez.
Yes.
$3,500. Volquez, his ERA numbers look like they're okay, but if you look deeper, he's just still an average pitcher at best. So really
Pitches
not a guy.
Contact.
Yeah.
Lately.
Yeah, exactly. He's the type of guy that's going to make you beat him. And Luis Valbuena, he's the type of guy who is only going to beat you one way. It's either going into the seats or into the catcher's glove while he's swinging and missing.
Yep. Third base, here's what I have. I have 3 options written down. Manny Machado, like you said. Nick Martinez has reverse splits, easier on righties. So you do the math there. Justin Turner, righty-lefty matchup against Robbie Ray in Chase Field. As we mentioned, hitter-friendly park. Robbie Ray has a 339 WOBA split against righties this season. And we know Turner has the upside. So 3.7K, I like him. Otherwise, looking down a little bit cheaper, I like Mike Moustakas. In Houston, that's a significant park upgrade for all the Royals bats. And they've had some pretty tough matchups in these first 2 games, especially yesterday against Keuchel. That's a horrible matchup for Moustakas. So I think he's in line for a bounce-back outing here, a little bit easier of a draw.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll throw out Derek Dietrich as well. Mentioned Chris Heston struggles with lefties, $2,300. Unfortunately, he's third base and not second base eligible anymore. But then one more guy, Chase Headley, bumped down in the order, but if he's back up batting around second again at 2,600, I like him against the fly ball pitcher and Shoemaker.
Yep.
Shortstop options, if you're looking for a big upside guy, Carlos Correa is your man. We mentioned Volquez, the contact pitcher. Carlos Correa, now that Giancarlo Stanton is hurt, hitting the ball harder than anyone else in the league. So not necessarily having all that great batted ball success right now, but he's hitting the ball hard. He's seeing it well. Got to like him. Like Brandon Crawford once again, $3,100 against Dan Herron. Of course, he's an option. And then outside, there's one more guy I'll throw at you. See who else you got. Alfredo Simon has been pretty good against righties, but Jung Ho Kang is an interesting tournament option for me because he does have power, and Simon's not a guy. He doesn't throw hard, not fooling anybody. So when you make contact, he can go a long way pretty quickly.
Yep. I like Carlos Correa as well if you can reach him, but I don't think that really blends very well with many cash game options. So I think Brandon Crawford might be my guy. 3.1K. I like the price point. Otherwise, if you're going cheap, JJ Hardy's a guy I'm looking at. I'm not super enthused with that pick, as you usually aren't with JJ Hardy, but he's been solid lately. And as we said, Nick Martinez reverse splits, easier on righties. I think it makes a lot of sense with not many other options sitting down there. 2.4K, I think I'll at least give a look to him.
Yeah, completely agree. And then one other guy, min salary Starlin Castro, hasn't been very good this season, but I mean he's too talented of a hitter to be this bad for this long. So I tend to think he's going to turn around. Bartolo Colon, another one of those guys. He's not walking anybody. He's also not striking out a ton, right around league average. So I mean guys are making contact, and I think that Castro can do some damage for min salary tonight as well. Outfield options, of course, Bryce Harper. Don't need to tell you about his prospects tonight against Matt Whistler. He's in a great spot. Mike Trout, of course, same scenario. They're pretty much the same player, right? Isn't that
Yep.
what the consensus is now?
Yeah, just one's righty, one's lefty, and yeah,
Yeah, exactly. One's got cooler hair, I guess, and one's not quite as cocky. The guy that I really like, he's been a great
both are on
cash game.
steroids.
Yeah.
Oh wait, did I just say that?
I mean, either way, it may be deer antler spray. Maybe there's something going on with
Yeah.
with something there. But either way, Brett Gardner, you know I love him. Flyball pitcher. The guy's been crushing everybody. $4,600. I think if I'm paying for one guy in my cash games in the outfield, it's going to be Gardner just because he does it all. Hasn't stolen a base in quite some time now, which is I won't say it's concerning, but he still has 15 on the season. But you know that part of his game is still there, and none of the Angels catchers particularly great at throwing out runners either. So I expect him to have a big game tonight.
Yeah, I have Brett Gardner atop my list too. I think this is a nice matchup against Schumacher. He has home run upside along with, he's been getting 3 hits a game lately, so you have to like him there. Otherwise, looking down the list a little further, AJ Pollock, righty lefty matchy against Anderson tonight in Chase Field. Otherwise, Yasiel Puig is kind of cheap. He's 3.4K. Going up against Robbie Ray, as we said, the right-handed Dodgers, all in a good spot tonight. And then if you want to go, I think Denard Span might be more of a safer cash game option, as he usually is against mediocre pitching. Just a couple hits, a run, stolen base. That's pretty much what this guy does night in, night out. So 3.3K, I definitely love the price point there. Otherwise, a guy that I really like, and he's been red hot lately, but I think he's been getting overlooked a lot, is Cesar Hernandez at 2.7K. He's a switch hitter batting second for the Phillies, and he's stolen like 6 bases in the past 4 games, including 3 in the past 2 games against Jonathan Lucroy, which is pretty damn impressive if I do say so.
Yep.
He's got 2 hits, 4 hits, 2 hits, 1 hit over his past 4 games. He's just on fire, and Kyle Loesch is pretty generous to lefties. So I think I really like him, man. I really like the price point, 2.7K.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'll throw out a couple more cheap options for you here. As we're looking at bad pitchers, you already just kind of led into a little bit. Kyle Loesch has a 1.87 home run per 9. You mentioned Ryan Howard as a cheap source of power. Dom Brown is a guy that's got a ton of power. Min salary in the outfield, assuming he's in the lineup, and he should be. I mean, it's not a bad spot for him in Citizens Bank Park. And it's the guy who's given up, I believe, the most home runs per 9 of any qualified starter this year. Don't quote me on that, but if it's not, it's very close. Either way, a couple more cheap guys here. Anthony Goes is minimum salary also. He does get AJ Burnett, but it's a lefty-righty matchup, so I like his prospects at the top of that order. Burnett's been good, but he's not dominating anyone. And then an interesting tournament option over here, because he is priced higher than you would like him to be, is Randall Grichuk. Hitting the ball pretty well. Homered out Chris Sale last night. You look at 3 of his last 4 games, he has at least 1 extra base hit. I mean, he's hitting the ball well, and at 3,500, he should have really low ownership. So I think that he's a really interesting tournament option tonight as well.
Yeah, definitely. And, I mean, if you look at it, you might feel just as confident in him as you do a guy like a big namer like Yasiel Puig, just because Puig's been so shaky lately and Grichuk's for lack of a better term, locked in.
Yeah.
Righty-lefty matchup too. But for your minimum salary power hitter, I'll see your Dom Brown, and I'll raise you an Alexander Guerrero for the Dodgers. Assuming he's in the lineup as well, he's a guy with the power. Chase Field, righty-lefty matchup. Check the lineup, see if he's in there. I like him for some tournament upside at minimum salary. Otherwise, for your cash game cheapies, I like Chris Parmelee once again against Nick Martinez, picking on him. And I also like Cole Calhoun, but I can't decide which one I like more. I think maybe I like Cole Calhoun more, just because Eovaldi 342 WOBA split against lefties.
Yep.
I don't know. I really like that. I think Calhoun's more of a solid, proven player, and he's been hitting pretty well lately. So I think I like Cole Calhoun for my cash games.
Yeah, and I mean he's surrounded by Albert Pujols and Mike Trout, so that's not a bad spot to be for runs and RBIs. And I'll throw out one more guy, Gerardo Parra, $2,600 if he's leading off against Aaron Harang. He's been okay against lefties, but he's a guy I've been watching him pitch his entire career. He was here for a lot of the time, and he's just not that good anymore. So
I'm sorry. Do you need to go to therapy for that? Because
I can't. I will say this:
too many innings of Aaron Harang.
I think there was a span of I don't know, 6 months of Reds games I went to where it was every game I went to just happened to be Aaron Harang pitching. I got really sick of watching him be okay. But either way, I don't have to watch him anymore. I get to pick on him now, so I'll take advantage where I can.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our optimizer and all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.